Hello interwebs, welcome to Let's Review. Today we are looking at the Cooler Master Master Keys Pro S. So I finally weakened and I bought a mechanical keyboard after a lot of kicking and screaming and resistance. I wasn't an enormous fan of mechanical keyboards when they first hit the scene, mainly just because the clackety clack. However, I have bought the Cheery MX Brown's versions of this keyboard today, and the brown switches are one of the quieter ones. They're still not silent, we're still going to get some clackety clack from this. However, I'm going to do another video in the future about fitting O-rings to this keyboard, just to show you guys the kind of effects we can get from that. So that'll be coming up in another video. But the other thing as well was just simply the cost of keyboards. A lot of mechanical keyboards, it's quite normal to spend anywhere between £100 and £200 on a mechanical keyboard. And I mean, I remember when I was a kid looking at keyboards that cost like sort of 70 to 100, going, that is bonkers, who would spend that much on a keyboard? And now that is quite commonplace to spend way over that amount. However, the Master Keys comes in at about £100, which I was willing to spend. So let's take a look at this thing and find out how much £100 will get you on a decent mechanical keyboard, and how it differs as well from the more expensive keyboards like the Corsairs. Okay, so let's open this thing up. So I have to say, from the box alone, I kind of like, I had this thing in my mind that I was buying a poor man's mechanical keyboard here, that the Cooler Master ones were going to be a bit goofy kind of thing. Like, yeah, they've got the Cheery MX switches, but you know, it's not quite as swish as a Corsair. But I mean, if the box is anything to judge by, then this thing looks really swish. Let's open it up and see what we've got. Again, more swishness. There's not much to see yet, but I like where this is going. Okay, so we've got a keyboard, and I'm just going to tease you guys a bit more by putting that to one side and seeing what else is in here. Let's look through this, shall we? No, let's keep going. Okay, cool, we've got a cable. So immediately we can see one of the things that I wanted the Cooler Master for, which is it has a detachable cable. This is a micro USB cable. This is really nice, actually. It's braided, got the Cooler Master logos on it, nice gold connectors, and the keyboard end is a 90-degree connector, which is nice. So you can back this up against something and it's not going to get in the way. So I'm liking that already. The detachable cable was a major selling point for me. We've also got a keycap removal tool there, which I'm not going to use yet, but at some point, possibly in this video, I do want to put rubber O-rings on this keyboard to see how that affects the noise. So we'll come back to that shortly. For now, we're going to leave that in the box, and let's take a closer look at the keyboard. So, is this just a cover it's come in? Yeah, it's just a cover, not like a bag or anything, which would have been kind of cool for LAN parties and stuff. Wow, look at that, that's nice. It's fairly chunky, it's quite thick, quite a deep keyboard, but at the same time it's very minimalistic. That's kind of exactly what I wanted in a keyboard, quite frankly. So we've got the legs that can stick out to increase the elevation a bit further. No idea what degree of tilt this gives, but between its natural tilt and the legs, if you do like the high rise, you can get a fairly large lift on that. I'm going to leave those shut because I like a flat keyboard myself. So it's got a slightly white backing to it, you can see between the keys there, which is nice. That should bounce the light out from the backlight a bit more. And the connector is right up in the corner here. Which way around does that orient? So that goes in like so. So that gives you quite a tidy layout there, that's quite nice. And if you are going straight off the back of your desk, that's just going to do that. So I think this is a 1.8 meter cable, so you get some decent length on that as well. And again, because it's micro USB, you can replace this cable with any kind of cable you like, which again, I really like. One of the things that put me off buying a Corsair, because based on other videos that I've done, I was very close to getting a Corsair K65 or something like that. However, the big, thick as your arm, heavy cable that comes out of the Corsair keyboards with the double USB connector on it, I'm not a fan of it. It's too bulky. Considering I'm currently used to wireless keyboards, it's enough that I have a cable now, let alone a cable that is as thick as my arm kind of thing. So yeah, So all in all, it's got a very comfortable weight to it, a very comfortable weight. It feels confident, and we've got the rubber feet on the bottom to make sure that it's not going to slide around too much while you're gaming on it. So let's have a feel of these keys. Ooh, very clicky. It's it's clicky as mechanical keyboards are, but we'll talk more about that shortly. So let's get this thing plugged in and see what it looks like when it's powered up. Okay, so let's have a look through some of the keyboard backlighting modes that we have on this thing. So I'm going to switch it over to Profile 4, which I haven't touched yet. So here is the default setup of the keyboard on its white backlight. By default, by holding down the FN key, as you can see, it gives us colors up the top which allow us to adjust the color on the fly. However, F4 switches between some programmed modes. So if we hit mode, we go to the wave, which is mode 2. Then we can also get the cross mode, where each one fires across the keyboard. So it's kind of like a lightning strike. That's kind of a funky thing. So this is a lightning strike effect. That's kind of funky, that. I like it. Ka-chow. Then let's move on. So the next one is a fade style one, where as I type letters in, they fade out afterwards. Then we've got the customize layout. Now this is more relevant when we get onto the LED macro programming, which I'll cover a bit later on in this video. But the short answer is, this is a custom illumination layout where you can set an individual color on each key. So as you can see, by default they've programmed in the common gamer keys, as it were. Then the next option is the starlight effect, where, as you can see, it's kind of pulsing the individual keys on at random. This is a really nice little effect. I like this one quite a lot, and I might experiment with using this one as the default effect that I have on the keyboard, because it's a nice sort of soft, pleasing effect. Next we have the rainfall effect, where as you can see we have raindrops falling down the keyboard. And it's worth noting at this point that all of these ones where they're appearing in white, we can customize the colors on them. So we can change those raindrops to blue, like that. And now they're blue raindrops, which is nice. And I can add those colors back in by holding down the FN key and typing in up to 9. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 for 9 levels of brightness on red. So we can add in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 levels of brightness on green, and it's going to tint that a little bit. The green doesn't have a huge effect on this. 6, 7, 8, 9, and now we're back up to white. Okay, the next thing on the list is a fade effect. So this is going to fade through the RGB spectrum. So this is one of the obligatory functions of any RGB thing. And then the next one we have the breathing effect. So obviously again, we can customize what color the keyboard breathes. Then after that, what's this one going to be? Huh? Oh yeah, this is the wave effect. This one looks kind of cool immediately. As you can see, every time I tap a keyboard, we get a wave come out from it. But this is actually not as cool as it initially seems, because if I actually start typing in anger like this, the whole thing just turns into a bit of a mess. So yeah, not a huge fan of that one. It seems like a good idea, but just isn't. So let's move on. Okay, what's this one next? Okay, I think we're on the off position now. Yeah. Then finally, we have the coolest one, which is snake. So here's our food, here's our snake head, and using the arrow keys, I can control this snake and grab the green dots. And we can literally just keep playing this until our snake gets too long. At some point I will try and complete it. Whoops, I went back on myself. And so the game starts again. So while the keyboard is playing snake, the letters are disabled. So the keyboard itself is not inputting to the computer at the moment. So that's kind of funky. And then to get out of this, we're just going to mode out. And now we're back onto an off profile. So let's FN again. And there we go. And now we've cycled back round to just the default static one. Now, If we open up the software for this keyboard, if I open up Master Keys, we do actually have some additional profiles, so I'll just show you those now. So the Master Keys software, when I was looking around online about this software has taken quite a lot of flack by people who accuse it of having not enough levels of customization and stuff like that. But to be honest, as I've been mentioning during this video, I like the lack of software support that is required for this keyboard. The fact that pretty much all of its features are entirely programmable directly on the keyboard with no software is exactly why I wanted this keyboard and not a Corsair. Because Corsair are the complete opposite. Most of their keyboards you can't do anything without the software running in the background. However, the Master Keys software, the idea is you customize the keyboard and then you close the software when you're finished with it. You're not supposed to leave it open in the background. So from here, I can manually change what color profile we're on by clicking on them, and I can also add and remove them. So for example, if we don't want to have the cross mode effect, I can uncheck that box and that will take it out of the rotation when I'm doing FN F4. And also, what's this rest mode? Oh, that's cool. So the rest mode allows me to decide what color it's going to be. So we can make the cross mode be white and the rest mode be red. So if we apply it, so now when I type in letters, as you can see, we get the cross mode but a red keyboard backlight. Now this is nice because this is something that you can rarely do on these keyboards, have multiple effects stacked up. So that's a pretty cool effect here. So we could also do an inverse thing where we have a white rest and a black cross. Oh no, I'm not allowed to do that. That's cheating. Never mind. Oh well, but still, pretty cool all around. So let's keep that in there. So the other effects that I haven't gone through here because they're off by default are we also have a system status option where we can have CPU loading, and it shows you the load of my CPU in a bar graph. So because I'm recording in OBS, we're quite high at the moment. You can see we're just bouncing off of 100 here and there. So that's cool. And also there's an equalizer, presumably for when you have music running through the computer as well. And then finally, the multi-layer option. This allows us to, it's called multi-layer, but it's more of a mosaic feature. So this allows us to mosaic up effects, so we could have WAST in a different color, or with WAST having the fade out effect, or we could have raindrops but WAST still illuminated. So let's try that effect. So let's change static to raindrop and then set a static in red just on WAST. There we go. So now I have the raindrop effect except for my WAST keys, which is quite a nice function. So this allows you to combine multiple effects on the keyboard. It's a shame that you can't layer them up, because what I would love would be to have a static white backlight at say 50% with blue raindrops falling on it or something like that. That would be gorgeous, but unfortunately you can't have the layers on top of each other, which is a shame. I would love for them to update that, but it's still a nifty effect. So other things that we can do in the software, we can also control the keyboard repeat rate, which is on the F5 to F8 controls. And in addition to that, we can also manually do all of this on multiple profiles, and we can import and export our profiles from this library here. So all in all, the software is very simple yet very comprehensive. It more or less allows you to do everything you can do on the keyboard from your computer and then save it. The only thing you can't do from the software is program your macro keys, which is a bit of a shame because the macro programming is fairly complicated, but you know, it's a fairly niche thing. I'm not going to bust them over that. So I like the software. I love the LED backlight effects, and it's nice how they've tried to make them useful in various ways. So all in all, solid. And then once we're finished with doing all of this, we hit apply. It goes through the loading screen where it dials in the profiles, and then we can close this software. It's important to note that while the software is open, we cannot use the keyboard input itself. Or rather, we cannot program the keyboard. So if you have the Cooler Master software open, you'll find that your FN controls and your mode functions do not work while you're on that control. But once you close the Cooler Master software, the keyboard inputs start working again. Okay, so I've now discovered that Cooler Master did actually do a tutorial video on YouTube, so look up the Cooler Master Master Keys tutorial video for more information on programming this thing. That's basically the instruction manual as I've now discovered. But in the meantime, I'll give you a cheat sheet to demonstrate the macro keys that I hadn't managed to figure out on my own. So the LED macro function is more like a LED customize function. If we go FN F10 to enter macro mode, we've now gone to the customize layout, so there are our gamer keys as we saw earlier on. Now notice the FN key is lit up in white. This is the color that we're programming to. So if we go 890, we've now dialed in white to those keys. While down FN, we can drop the green and the blue to go red, and then we can drop the red, add in the green, and then do the same for blue. And then afterwards we do FN Profile 1, and that's now saved it to Profile 1. If I switch to Profile 2 and then move over to the custom layout, notice how those programs have now gone, and if we switch back to Profile 1, they're back again. So that's the LED macro function, or LED programming as I will refer to it as. Right, so now let's do the custom key macros function. So we're going to do FN F11 to start recording macros, and we're on a blue backlight to show us which keys we can apply a macro to. So I'm going to put a macro on the tilde key here, and the macro is going to be, "That's where you're wrong, kiddo." And we're going to put that on single repeat. So now that's red to indicate that there's a macro saved there. So we're finished here, so we're now going to escape, and the keyboard goes back to normal mode. And so now, if we bring up a notepad document, I can spam, "That's where you're wrong, kiddo." And let's just do that again for good measure. How cool is that, huh? Suddenly macros seem pretty baller. And once again, I want to reiterate the point that I do not require any software to be running to do this. This is all from the keyboard's built-in system with its ridiculous Cortex something or other CPU running at several megahertz. It actually has a CPU, this keyboard. So yeah, that's why you need a CPU in your keyboard. But I'm pretty impressed by it, quite frankly. I love it to bits. So that's about it. I think we've gone over all the features of this keyboard. So in terms of noise, well, it's a mechanical keyboard. It makes a clackety-clack. However, I've heard on good authority from a friend of mine that if you stick some rubber O-rings on these switches, it will get quieter. So I'm going to be buying some rubber O-rings to make this a bit quieter. But other than that, I'm really impressed with this, and I'm really happy with my purchase. So thanks for watching, everyone. I'll see you all next time. Goodbye for now.